If you've been seeing headlines about new driving law changes coming in February 2026 that could cost you big money, I want you to take a breath. I know how overwhelming it feels when you see alarming posts on social media claiming that your driver's license might become invalid overnight, or that you could face massive fines without warning. You're not imagining things. There is confusion out there, and today I'm going to walk you through exactly what's actually changing, what isn't, and most importantly, what this means for you. You're watching Immigration Path USA. This channel exists to give you fact-based immigration news without the rumors, without the panic, and without the clickbait. We break down complex policies into simple language so you can make informed decisions about your life in the United States. If that's valuable to you, please consider subscribing and turning on notifications so you never miss an update. Now let's talk about these so-called 5 new driving law changes that are supposedly coming in February 2026. The first thing I need you to understand is that driving laws in the United States are primarily controlled by individual states, not by the federal government. This is a critical distinction because when you see a national headline about driving law changes, it's often misleading. What happens in California doesn't automatically happen in Texas. What Florida decides doesn't immediately affect New York. Each state has its own Department of Motor Vehicles or equivalent agency, and each state sets its own rules about licensing, registration, insurance, and traffic enforcement. That said, there are some federal requirements that do affect state driving laws, particularly when it comes to identification standards. The most significant federal program that has caused confusion in recent years is called Real ID. This is not a new program for February 2026, but there is an important deadline connected to it that people are mixing up with other supposed changes. Let me explain what Real ID actually is and why it matters. After the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001, the United States Congress passed the Real ID Act in 2005. This law established minimum security standards for state-issued driver's licenses and identification cards. The goal was to make these documents harder to forge and to create a more uniform system across all 50 states. However, states were given many years to comply with these standards, and the deadline for full enforcement has been extended multiple times. The current federal deadline for Real ID enforcement is May 7, 2025. Starting on that date, if you want to board a domestic flight within the United States or enter certain federal facilities like military bases or nuclear power plants, you will need either a Real ID compliant driver's license or another acceptable form of identification such as a valid passport. This does not mean your current driver's license becomes invalid for driving. Let me repeat that because it's one of the most common sources of confusion. Your regular driver's license will still allow you to drive legally on public roads, even if it's not Real ID compliant. The only thing that changes is whether you can use it to board an airplane for domestic travel or enter certain secure federal buildings. So when people talk about February 2026 driving law changes, they are often confusing different timelines and different requirements. There is no single federal driving law change happening in February 2026 that affects all 50 states simultaneously. What you may be seeing are individual state-level changes that some states have scheduled for early 2026, combined with ongoing confusion about Real ID, combined with misinformation spreading on social media. Let me address 5 specific areas where confusion is happening, and where some states may indeed be implementing changes. I want to be very clear with you. These are not universal rules affecting everyone everywhere. These are examples of the types of changes that some states are considering or implementing, and you need to check what applies in your specific state. The first area of change involves digital driver's licenses. Several states are moving toward allowing residents to store a digital version of their driver's license on their smartphone. States like Arizona, Colorado, Georgia, Iowa, and Maryland have already launched pilot programs or full implementations of mobile driver's licenses. More states are planning to roll out this option in 2026. This is optional in most places. You can still carry a physical card. The digital version is just an additional option for convenience. However, if your state does introduce this, there may be new rules about how and when you can present your digital license to law enforcement, and there may be fees associated with obtaining the digital credential. This is not a requirement, it's an option. But if you choose to use it, you need to understand how it works in your state. The second area involves stricter requirements for license renewals, particularly for older drivers. Some states are considering or implementing laws that require drivers over a certain age, typically 70 or 75, to renew their licenses more frequently or to pass additional vision or road tests. This is being done in the name of public safety. The statistics show that accident rates do increase in certain older age groups, and states are trying to balance independence and mobility with safety concerns. If you or a family member is in this age range, check with your state DMV to see if any new renewal requirements are coming. These rules vary widely by state. Some states already have these requirements, others are just considering them. The third area is increased penalties for distracted driving, particularly cell phone use while driving. Many states have had laws against texting and driving for years, but enforcement has been inconsistent and penalties have been relatively low. In 2026, several states are increasing fines significantly for distracted driving violations. We're talking about fines that could reach $200, $300, even $500 for a first offense, and much higher for repeat offenses. Some states are also implementing point systems where multiple distracted driving violations could lead to license suspension. The definition of distracted driving is also expanding in some states to include not just texting, but any handheld use of a phone, eating while driving, or even adjusting a GPS while the vehicle is in motion. Again, this varies by state, but the trend is toward much stricter enforcement and much higher financial penalties. The fourth area involves changes to insurance requirements and verification systems. Several states are implementing or expanding electronic insurance verification systems. This means that when a police officer pulls you over, they can instantly check whether your vehicle is insured without you having to show a physical insurance card. While this might sound convenient, it also means there's no grace period or benefit of the doubt if your insurance has lapsed even by 1 day. In the past, you might have been able to show an expired card and explain that you just renewed and the new card is in the mail. With electronic verification, the system knows immediately if you're not covered, and the penalties can be severe. We're talking about fines of several $100s, potential impoundment of your vehicle, and suspension of your driver's license until you can prove insurance coverage. Some states are also raising minimum insurance coverage requirements, which means your monthly insurance premium may increase even if you haven't had any accidents or violations. The fifth area is related to documentation requirements for non-citizens. This is where immigration status directly intersects with driving privileges, so pay close attention. Several states allow undocumented immigrants to obtain driver's licenses or driving privilege cards. These states include California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Hawaii, Illinois, Maryland, Massachusetts, Minnesota, Nevada, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, Oregon, Rhode Island, Utah, Vermont, Virginia, and Washington, plus Washington, D.C. However, the requirements and renewal procedures in these states can change. Some states are implementing more frequent renewal periods for these licenses. Some are requiring additional documentation to prove state residency. Some are increasing fees. If you hold one of these licenses or driving privilege cards, you need to stay informed about any changes in your state's requirements. Your license will have an expiration date. Make sure you know what documents you need to gather before that date arrives, so you can renew without interruption. It's also important to understand that if you are in the United States on a visa, such as a student visa, work visa, or dependent visa, your driver's license validity may be tied to your immigration status. In many states, when you apply for a driver's license as a non-immigrant visa holder, the license will be issued with an expiration date that matches your authorized stay in the United States. If your visa status is extended, you typically need to visit the DMV and update your information to get a new license with a later expiration date. If your visa status expires and you don't leave the country or adjust your status, your driver's license may also become invalid even if the physical card hasn't reached its printed expiration date yet. This is not a new rule, but it's one that many people don't fully understand, and it can lead to serious consequences if you're pulled over and your license is no longer valid because your underlying immigration status has changed. Now let's talk about who is actually affected by these changes and who is not. If you are a U.S. citizen with a valid state-issued driver's license and you keep your address updated, maintain car insurance, follow traffic laws, and renew your license on time, most of these changes will have minimal impact on you. The main things you need to be aware of are the real ID deadline if you plan to fly domestically, potential increases in fines for traffic violations, and the option of digital licenses if your state offers them. If you are a permanent resident, the situation is similar to U.S. citizens. Your green card status gives you the right to live and work in the United States indefinitely as long as you maintain your residency and don't commit acts that would make you deportable. Your driver's license should be treated the same as a citizen's license in most states. However, you should ensure that your license is Real ID compliant if you want to use it for domestic air travel, and you should keep your address updated with both the DMV and USCIS whenever you move. If you are in the United States on a temporary visa such as an H-1B, L-1, F-1, J-1, or other non-immigrant status, you need to be much more careful. Your driver's license is often directly tied to your visa validity. When your visa status expires or when you change status, you need to update your driver's license. If you're planning to adjust status from one visa category to another, or if you're applying for a green card, make sure you understand how this affects your driver's license. Some people have found themselves in situations where their driver's license expired during a status change, and they had difficulty getting it renewed because their immigration paperwork was still pending. This is something you can usually resolve by bringing receipt notices or other USCIS documentation to the DMV, but it requires planning ahead. If you are undocumented and living in a state that allows you to get a driver's license or driving privilege card, these changes matter to you significantly. Any increase in documentation requirements, any increase in renewal fees, or any change in renewal procedures could affect your ability to maintain your driving privileges. You need to stay closely informed about your specific state's rules. Do not rely on secondhand information or social media posts. Go directly to your state DMV website or call them to ask about requirements. Now, I want to address the biggest misconception I'm seeing online. There is no federal law taking effect in February 2026 that will suddenly invalidate millions of driver's licenses across the country. There is no new immigration enforcement mechanism being built into driver's licenses in February 2026. There is no national database being created in February 2026 that will automatically flag non-citizens when they use their driver's license. These are rumors, and they are causing unnecessary panic. What is true is that immigration enforcement agencies like ICE can and do access state DMV databases under certain circumstances, and they have been able to do this for years. This is not new to 2026. What is also true is that if you are in the United States without authorization and you get pulled over for a traffic violation, that interaction with law enforcement could potentially lead to immigration consequences, depending on where you live and the policies of that local jurisdiction. This is also not new to 2026. This has been a reality for many years. What should you actually do with this information? First, find out if your current driver's license is Real ID compliant. Look at your license. If it has a star symbol in the upper right corner or the words Real ID compliant somewhere on the card, then it meets the federal standard and you can use it to board domestic flights after May 7th, 2025. If it doesn't have that marking and you want to use your driver's license for air travel, you should visit your state DMV before May 2025 and upgrade to a Real ID compliant license. You'll need to bring additional documents like a birth certificate or passport, proof of social security number, and 2 proofs of residency. Each state's requirements are slightly different, so check your state DMV website first. Second, review your state's specific driving laws. Go to your state DMV website and look for any announcements about law changes, fee increases, or new requirements. If you don't find clear information online, call your local DMV office and ask directly. Don't assume that what you read about another state applies to you. Third, make sure your car insurance is current and meets your state's minimum requirements. With electronic verification systems becoming more common, there's less room for error. Set up automatic payments if possible so you don't accidentally let your coverage lapse. Fourth, if you are on a temporary visa, Keep track of your visa expiration date and your driver's license expiration date. If your visa is being extended or if you're changing status, gather your immigration documents before your license expires so you can bring them to the DMV if needed. USCIS receipt notices, approval notices, I-94 records, and unexpired work authorization documents can all be helpful when dealing with the DMV during a status change. Fifth, if you are undocumented and you have a driving privilege card or state-issued license, treat your renewal date as absolutely critical. Start gathering required documents at least 2 months before your expiration date. Make sure your address is current. Make sure you have the required proofs of residency. If your state requires proof of car insurance to renew, make sure your insurance is active. Missing a renewal deadline could mean losing your ability to drive legally, which could affect your ability to get to work and support your family. Sixth, be extremely cautious about distracted driving. Even if the laws haven't changed yet in your state, the trend across the country is toward much higher fines and stricter enforcement. Put your phone away while driving. Use hands-free systems if you need to make calls. Don't text, don't scroll social media, don't take photos or videos while behind the wheel. The financial cost of a ticket is increasing, but the potential immigration consequences of any law enforcement interaction are even more serious for those without status or on temporary visas. I also want to remind you that immigration rules and driving rules generally do not change overnight. When states pass new laws, there is usually a period of public comment, legislative debate, and then a grace period before enforcement begins. When the federal government changes immigration policy, there are usually legal challenges, court cases, and injunctions that delay implementation. This doesn't mean you should ignore what's happening, but it does mean you shouldn't panic based on a headline or a social media post. Verify information through official sources. The official sources you should be checking include your state's DMV website, which will have information about driver's license requirements, renewal procedures, and any upcoming changes. You can also check the Transportation Security Administration website, which is tsa.gov, for information about Real ID and what documents you can use to board domestic flights. If you have immigration questions related to your driver's license, the USCIS website at uscis.gov has information about maintaining status, changing status, and what documents you need to prove your legal presence in the United States. If you're unsure about your specific situation, especially if you're on a temporary visa or if you're undocumented, consider consulting with a qualified immigration attorney. I'm not giving you legal advice in this video. I'm giving you factual information about policies and trends. But your individual circumstances may be complicated, and a licensed attorney can review your documents and give you personalized guidance. Many nonprofit organizations offer free or low-cost legal consultations for immigration matters. You can find lists of reputable organizations through the American Immigration Lawyers Association website or through local immigrant advocacy groups. One more thing I want to emphasize. Do not pay attention to people on social media who claim they have insider information about secret immigration crackdowns or hidden changes to driver's license laws. Do not trust random posts that say things like, "My cousin's friend works at the DMV and they said that starting in February, everyone needs to bring 10 documents or their license will be revoked." These kinds of rumors spread very quickly, especially in immigrant communities where there's already a lot of fear and uncertainty. The reality is that legitimate policy changes are announced through official channels. They're published in state registers, they're posted on government websites, and they're covered by credible news organizations. If you can't find an official source confirming something you heard, it's probably not accurate. I know that living in uncertainty is difficult. I know that when your legal status is temporary or when you're undocumented, every news story feels like a potential threat. I know that the fear of losing your driver's license feels like the fear of losing your independence, your job, and your ability to care for your family. I understand that, and that's exactly why this channel exists. I want to help you separate real information from fear-mongering. I want to help you understand what's actually happening so you can make informed decisions instead of decisions based on panic. The truth about these so-called 5 new driving law changes in February 2026 is that there is no coordinated national change happening on that date. What is happening is a continuation of trends that have been in motion for years. States are slowly adopting real ID standards. States are experimenting with digital licenses. States are increasing penalties for distracted driving. States are improving insurance verification systems. And some states are adjusting the requirements for licenses issued to non-citizens. These are separate developments happening on different timelines in different states. February 2026 is not a magic date where everything changes at once. Your job is to stay informed about your specific state, maintain your documents, follow traffic laws, and not let fear control your decisions. If you keep your license current, maintain insurance, drive safely, and stay aware of your immigration status, you will be in a much better position than someone who ignores everything until there's an emergency. Before I close, I want to remind you that knowledge is power, but only if you use it. Watching this video is a great first step. Now, take the next step. Go to your state DMV website tonight. Check if your license is Real ID compliant. Check when your license expires. Check if there are any announcements about upcoming changes. Bookmark the page. Set a reminder in your phone for 2 months before your license expiration date so you have time to gather documents if needed. These small actions can prevent major problems down the road. If this video helped you understand the situation more clearly, please hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you're always updated with accurate immigration news. Share this video with someone you know who might be worried about these driving law changes. Send it to your family group chat. Post it in your community Facebook group. Help me fight misinformation by spreading facts instead of fear. And please leave your questions in the comments below. If you're wondering about a specific state's requirements, if you're confused about how your visa status affects your driver's license, if you want me to cover a related topic in a future video, let me know. I read the comments and I use your questions to guide what I cover next. This channel is for you, and your input helps me serve you better. Remember, immigration rules are complex, but they're not impossible to understand. Driving laws vary by state, but the information is available if you know where to look. You don't have to navigate this alone. Stay informed, stay calm, and stay legal. I'll see you in the next video.